everyone, and welcome to the VCalla Show. I'm Vincenzo Calla, the host, and today I'm welcome the President of the Conservative Party of Canada, Rob Batherson, to the show. Today, we will be talking about Canada's Conservatives in 2023. Thanks, Rob, for your time, and thanks for joining me today.
Great to be here, Vincenzo.
Well, it's so great to have you, and I'm going to start off with an explanation of what we'll be talking about today. So since the end of the Harper government in 2015, Canada's Conservatives have been serving as Canada's official opposition. Since 2015, 5 people have led the party: Rona Ambrose, Andrew Scheer, Aaron O'Toole, Candice Bergen, and currently Pierre Poilievre. In the past 2 federal elections, under Andrew Scheer in 19 and O'Toole in 21, the Conservatives won the popular vote, winning more votes than any of the other parties. But because of the electoral system, the Liberals formed back-to-back minorities with the plurality of seats they won. In September 2022, a record number of Canadians joined the Conservative Party and elected Pierre Poilievre in a landslide victory. Now the question remains, what can Poilievre and the Conservatives do to win the most seats and form government in the next election? So today we're going to tackle this really big question through a series of smaller, less heavy questions and try to figure that out. So Rob, let's get right started with talking about last year's campaign. So during the last Conservative leadership campaign last year, an extraordinary 675,000 people joined the Conservative Party of Canada, making it the largest party by membership in Canadian history. What does this increased membership mean for the party? And how can you retain these members who may have only bought a 1-year membership to vote in the leadership election and get them to renew their memberships and renew their interest in the party?
Well, first off, the record number of members who joined the Conservative Party of Canada, really that showed that a historic number of Canadians were prepared to pay money, join a political party because they wanted change. They were tired of a government that was not paying attention to the concerns of many Canadians on cost of living. They were concerned about a government that didn't respond to the everyday needs of Canadians. And so, having joined and having voted in significant numbers for Pierre Poilievre, our new leader, the next step is, as you pointed out, continuing to engage those members, most of whom are brand new to the partisan politics generally in a political party. So encouraging people to get involved in electoral district associations, encouraging people to consider stepping up to run as a candidate. And we have no shortage of interest in people running for the Conservative Party of Canada, and also encouraging people to make sure that they find other ways to contribute in terms of their time and their finances. And again, the indicators are very good on that. In the fourth quarter of 2022, we set a record for a non-election quarter, and raised a significant amount of funds that the party had not seen, or any political party had seen. So I think there's a lot of momentum that continues to be there for the Conservative Party of Canada, and we need to continue to work hard to engage those members, but also introduce Pierre Poilievre to many other Canadians who perhaps haven't been paying as much attention to politics in this last year.
Well, and I definitely have I prepared a question for later on in the interview about this record number of money that the party raised in the last quarter, and we'll make sure to talk about this a little later. But I want to go right to young people right now, first off. So I recently had Tasha Carradine join me for a discussion about young Conservatives and how the party can attract young people to join the party and vote for the party in federal elections. So what would you say the party needs to work on to attract more young people to the party? And do you think it's time to return a youth wing of sorts like the federal PC Legacy Party had?
So I'll answer the second question first. And I've attended every national convention of the Conservative Party of Canada since the merger of the two legacy parties in 2003. I was a member of the Progressive Conservative Party of Canada prior to the merger. So I'm very familiar with the existence of a youth wing, and also the debate that has occurred internally about whether to have a separate and distinct youth wing in the Conservative Party of Canada. That ultimately comes down to a decision of delegates at national conventions. And there have been efforts in the past to amend our party's constitution to create a separate and distinct youth wing. And what has happened in past debates is actually it has been young conservatives who have spoken out against the need for a separate and distinct youth wing because they feel that they don't need a separate structure to involve themselves in the party as candidates for parliament, as activists, volunteer office holders, perhaps working as a staff person either in Ottawa or in the field. And so the Conservative Party for young people, certainly over the last 2 decades, has been one that a separate and distinct youth wing hasn't been needed. Keep in mind that the last two out of three of our permanent leaders, Andrew Scheer and Pierre Poilievre, were both elected in 2004 at the age of 25. They didn't need a youth wing to get elected to Parliament and ultimately play significant and ultimately the highest level of leadership roles in the party. So we'll see where that debate goes leading into the convention in Quebec City. For those young people or others who feel that we should establish a separate and distinct youth wing in the Conservative Party, there is a process by which you can propose constitutional amendments. If it gets enough support, we would debate that in Quebec City, and if it gets enough support, if an idea to set up or an amendment to set up a separate and distinct youth wing for the party makes it to convention and acquires enough support, we'll follow where the grassroots views of members are.
So now I wanted to ask you about attracting the young people to the party when it comes to elections. So, especially now, there's a lot of issues that young people are paying attention to, whether that be housing or affordability or that sort of thing, that the Conservative Party does have policies on that might or might not be attractive to young people. So how do you think that you can advertise these to young people and show them that the Conservative Party could possibly be a contender for their votes in the next election?
Well, I think a lot of young people have joined the party in the last year, and I think Pierre Poilievre, first and foremost, has been the leading voice on the impact of inflation on the price of everything, and I think that has a disproportionate impact. On seniors, a disproportionate impact on young people. Housing affordability makes it harder and harder for young people to find their first home, and also on the issue of mental health, the issue of addictions. We've seen a Liberal government that has failed to keep their promise to set up a dedicated transfer for mental health and addictions. That was in the party's platform in 2021. We have members of parliament like Todd Doherty who have been particularly outspoken on that issue. And I think coming out of COVID, there is more discussion happening around the impact on mental health, the impact on addictions. And so I think what Pierre Poilievre has done as leader is because he is speaking to the issues that are very relevant to young people and has been speaking about those issues for quite some time, that is drawing more young people into the party than what we have seen in the past.
So on Pierre Poilievre now, so you have mentioned, and it's been apparent over the past year, it's been a year now since the leadership campaign kicked off and Pierre launched his bid. And so he's made a large impact on Canadians. So from the beginning when he was an MP in 2004 for my riding, which was Nepean Carleton, then the split happened. I stayed in Nepean and he went to Carleton, over to Carleton, and he's been the MP since 2015 there. And he's was a minister in the Harper government near the end, and he was the finance critic and a bunch of different critics over the years, and now he's leader. So what do you think he has been doing to make this impact, and what do you think he needs to do to continue making an impact that can turn into votes? And what should the party do to support him in this?
So I think upon winning the leadership, many of the steps that Pierre Poilievre has taken has helped position us for success in that next election, whenever that next election will be. His leadership team is quite impressive. You have two deputy leaders in Tim Uppel from Edmonton Millwoods, Alberta, and Melissa Lanceman from Thornhill in Ontario, who are working very hard in support of Pierre's efforts. They're traveling a lot across Canada. They're leading outreach efforts into communities that we need to support the Conservative Party to form a government in the next election. You have others like Jasraj Singh Halan, who came from very modest beginnings in Calgary to build a small business, work with at-risk youth. And so we have a shadow minister of finance in Jazz who is very much based on the realities of Main Street as opposed to Bay Street. In Quebec, we have a Quebec lieutenant in Pierre Poilievre who is working extremely hard with our talented team of Quebec MPs to grow support in that province. And then here in Atlantic Canada, we have a great group of 8 members of parliament in 3 of the 4 Atlantic provinces. I don't want to be very careful because anyone I single out from Atlantic Canada, I'll get into trouble for not mentioning others. But just off the top of my head, we'll go with Jake Stewart, who is on the leadership team, member of parliament for Miramichi Grand Lake, a former provincial cabinet minister, Dr. Stephen Ellis, who's the shadow minister for health, who was a longtime family physician in northeastern Nova Scotia, and Clifford Small in Newfoundland and Labrador, our first member of parliament elected on the island of Newfoundland since the 2006 general election. So a lot of the work that Pierre has done as leader has been about building that team. I mentioned building the team from the caucus side, but then from the party side, we have a new chair of Conservative Fund Canada, Rob Staley, who together with new professional staff are really modernizing and updating our fundraising capacity. And I think we're seeing the results of that modernization in the recent results. Mike Crace, who is the executive director and the leader's nominee for executive director of the Conservative Party of Canada, National Council ratified that nomination. And Mike has tremendous experience in the province of Ontario. He was executive director of the PC Party of Ontario through Doug Ford's 2 majority governments, but also has a deep understanding of the Greater Toronto Area, having worked in that part of Ontario as a regional organizer for the federal party during the Harper government years. And so no matter how good a leader is, and no matter how appealing a leader is, it's really important to have a strong team behind that leader. And I think that's been something that Pierre has put a lot of effort in since becoming leader last September.
Yeah, and there's been a lot that has happened since that last September. And before we go on to talking about building up to the next election and sort of looking at what the province have done and all that, I wanted to talk a bit about Mississauga Lakeshore. So the by-election, the Liberals kept the seat. And I know that Charles Sousa won, and he was former finance minister in Ontario. And the Conservatives had a candidate, Ron Chisner, who made an impact as well. And so these seats, like Mississauga Lakeshore, are some that many people say would be the types of seats needed for the Conservatives to form government, or an important role. So what do you think that needs to be done differently in the next election or by-elections or whatever to win ridings in the GTA and urban centers like Mississauga Lakeshore? What do you think should be focused on to work to that?
I wouldn't read too much into by-election results at this
Yeah.
stage. Keep in mind, you look at what happened after the death of the late great Jim Flaherty. We had a by-election in his former riding, or his riding of Whitby. We were able to retain the seat in a by-election in 2014 with former Mayor Pat Perkins. But then in 2015, the Liberals won that seat and have held that seat ever since. So I think our focus as a party is really building toward that next general election, and making sure that we continue to support our electoral district associations on candidate recruitment, engage our new members, and keep those new members engaged in a way that they feel comfortable with. and making sure that we have focus and discipline. And that was one of the key messages that Pierre delivered to us at National Council in our first meeting the day after he was elected leader, that we have to be focused on the priorities of Canadians, the priorities of Canadians that you're hearing about in the church halls and the legions and the coffee shops. And Canadians are very much struggling with the impact of skyrocketing inflation that primarily is a made in Canada problem because of government overspending, because of the carbon tax driving up input prices. And so that's where we have to keep our focus. And we know we're doing the right thing because both the Liberals and the NDP have attempted to change their position to match where our party's been coming from. The challenge that the Liberals and the NDP have compared to Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives is a challenge of authenticity. They're tackling that issue in response to where Pierre has been really for the last several years. And so I think Canadians know that if they are increasingly getting to know that if they want solutions that are going to work to bring costs down and make life more affordable for people and families and workers and seniors, that the Conservatives are best placed to do that.
So I wanted to talk a bit about now provincial government. So I know that across Canada, in your home province of Nova Scotia, my home province of Ontario, and a bunch of different provinces, there are conservative governments, conservative majority governments that are governing and have been for a while. So where do you see, is there any lessons that you think the federal conservatives can learn from Doug Ford and Tim Houston and all these different conservatives that have won over the past 5 years or so? And what do you think can be learned from those and can be a path forward to successful federal conservative government?
I think focus and discipline are extremely important, and not trying to be all things to all people and not trying to win every issue and every debate. Go to where voters are. And so one lesson out of Ontario obviously has been in both 2018 and 2022. 2018 was very much a change election, and so Doug Ford was able to own the change agent mantle to defeat Kathleen Wynne and Andrea Horwath. 2022, when you're playing defense and trying to get a second majority mandate, Ford's focus was very much around getting things done and being able to advance the province economically and advance the province on key infrastructure issues, transportation, housing, getting things done, getting it done. That was very much the Ford government's focus. And I think Ontarians appreciated having a government that placed their priorities at the top of their agenda. In Nova Scotia, fully a year before the 2021 election, Tim Houston made the decision to focus on healthcare, 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 and put out very detailed policies around mental health, seniors and long-term care, and primary care, so that when the election came in 2021, he had already established himself as somebody who had listened to healthcare professionals, listened to Nova Scotians, and put forward a very, very detailed plan to fix healthcare. And Nova Scotians responded to that, and it became very much a referendum on the previous 8 years of a Liberal government that had ignored healthcare, ignored the crisis in healthcare, ignored building new beds in long-term care facilities, had really failed the province on that issue. And so I think when we look at the federal landscape right now, continuing to prosecute with voters the record of the last 8 years and positioning the Conservative Party as really the only party that can deliver change. The NDP can't deliver change because they've essentially, through the supply and confidence agreement, enabled a very costly coalition with the Liberals. the Bloc Québécois is focused only on one jurisdiction, and so they do not have the means to replace a Liberal government that is offside on many issues of importance in Quebec. And so only the Conservatives can be counted upon to replace a tired, out of touch Liberal government that has made everything more expensive for Canadians.
So, going on from that now, you touched a while ago on the convention that's coming up this fall in Quebec City. So, the future of the party will continue to be discussed, and policies will be brought to the members to vote on ahead of the next election, whenever that may be. So, what are you looking forward to most about this convention, and what do you hope to see done and achieved?
Well, conventions are always exciting. Again, I've attended every one since the founding convention in 2005. Every convention has its own rhythm based on timing the election cycle, being in government, being in opposition. I'm excited about this convention because it's a chance for the party to introduce Pierre Poilievre to Canadians, to introduce Pierre Poilievre to Quebecers. It's the first convention that we've had in Quebec since our founding convention in Montreal in 2005. So a lot has changed over the last 18 years. And it's a chance for our party to hold our national convention in a city and a region that has been consistently supportive of the Conservative Party of Canada. It's the home region of Pierre Poilievre's Quebec lieutenant, as well as great MPs like Gérard Deltel, Dominique Vien, and I know I'm going to get into trouble by forgetting other MPs from Quebec, and we have other MPs from different parts of the province as well. So I'm really excited about that aspect of the convention. But we always debate policy. We don't avoid that. We can avoid that. It's in our constitution that we have to review our national policy declaration. We have to review our constitution and how we are governed as a party. And so having been through a number of leadership elections, oftentimes people ask, well, why are we doing things this way instead of that way? And part of the reason we make the decisions that we do as a party is we have to follow what's in the Constitution. So if there are grassroots members who don't like how the party has been run, that is an opportunity for, we talked about the youth wing earlier on, but if there are other ideas, that is a chance for grassroots members to champion change and seek support. And I've seen constitutional changes over the years that have made a tangible difference in our party. One of which was in the last convention in 2021, we changed the principle around equal ridings in a leadership election that required at least 100 voters to vote in a riding so that riding would get 100 points. And many people were concerned about the impact that would have on Quebec being able to have an influence on the outcome that would reflect the 78 seats that it has in the Parliament of Canada. And instead what happened was we had massive membership signings by the leadership candidates. And I don't think there was a riding in Quebec that didn't get their full 100 points as set out in the Constitution. So I hope people do bring their ideas to Quebec City and the Constitution. We're also required to elect a national council. And as I'm in my third consecutive term, I'm prohibited from running for re-election. My time on national council will come to an end in September. But even for those who decide to reoffer, it is wide open. If people aren't satisfied with the performance of National Council, they can choose to run. And there hasn't been a convention that I've attended where we haven't seen incumbents who weren't reelected and new people end up getting elected to National Council. So lots of exciting things to look forward to at our national convention. First, introducing Pierre Poilievre to Quebecers and all Canadians, national policy declaration debates, constitutional debates, and the election national council. So it'll be an action-packed agenda, that's for sure.
So finally, I wanted to look ahead to the next federal election, whenever that may be, 2025 or earlier. So In Q4 2022, as you mentioned, the Conservatives raised a record $9.7 million, with a large sum of money raised throughout 2022 in the leadership campaign in addition to that. So, what does this mean for the party heading into the next election? And what is being done right now to prepare for that election, whenever that may be?
Well, one of the changes that is taking place on the fundraising side is a greater focus on digital fundraising as opposed to more traditional forms of fundraising, such as telephone calling and direct mail. Those those fundraising techniques will continue, but with digital fundraising, because everything can be done online, your costs are significantly lower. There's no postage for digital. You don't have to hire people working in call centers to do outbound fundraising calls. So part of the modernization of fundraising, and again, that has helped drive, I think, not only improved top line results as to what we've raised as a party, but also we don't have to spend as much to raise those record amounts of dollars. And in doing so, that gives the party more resources to help introduce the leader to Canadians through paid advertising, help support touring across Canada and getting to voters. Geographically, we're an immense country, second largest in the world, but population-wise, we're small in comparison to other countries. So, we have to have our leader and other members of the leadership team on the road, listening to Canadians, but also telling them what we would do better as a Conservative government to help Canadians with the impact of skyrocketing inflation. So fundraising helps fuel successful fundraising helps fuel greater pre-election work that needs to take place, and also the modernization of our voter ID system to make sure that we regain the competitive advantage versus the Liberals that we had when we were in government. That I think everybody is quite open that we haven't been as strong on the voter identification side and the technology side as the Liberals have been through past elections.
So, I think that's pretty much it for today. That's where my questions end. Do you have anything else to add today, Rob?
No, just really, really exciting time for the Conservative Party. We're united. We are focused on making life better for Canadians. We are ready to turn, as our leader has said, the hurt that many Canadians are feeling right now into hope for a better future.
Well, that's all for today. So thanks, Rob, for joining me. We covered a lot of ground, and it was great having you today.
Great to be here, and anytime, always happy to chat.
Well, thank you so much. And to stay updated, make sure to follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at BC Productions 25. Check out my website, vincenzocalla.com, and make sure to like, subscribe, and choose to get notifications here on YouTube. The VCalla Show is a VCalla production. So until the next video, I'm Vincenzo Calla, signing out.